We will then have Mandy come around and pick them up and give them to Noelle and myself. We gave you 2 note cards, one for one presidential question and one for a senatorial question. The mission of ASWSUV is to provide the students of WSU Vancouver a unique student life experience through advocacy, leadership, and activities. These debates will give the candidates a chance to interact with one another and challenge their platforms and allow the public to form opinions on who to vote for. It is important that all candidates remain respectful to one another. We will have a green card for 1 minute time, a yellow card for 30 seconds, and a red card for 5 seconds. This debate will be broken up into 2-hour-long segments with a short intermission in between. We will begin the senatorial segment in the format that follows. Part 1 will be general questions. We will begin by asking one general question for all Senate candidates, and you'll have 1 minute to answer. We will then ask more specific questions, and if you would like to answer, please take your placard and place it on its side. If another candidate would like, you will then have 1 minute to answer the question. If another candidate would like to rebuttal, they can raise their placard in response, and you have 1 minute to respond. We will allow 2 candidates to rebuttal. We will then give the original candidate 1 minute to respond. After the candidate finishes their responses, we will move to the next question, and there will be no more than 5 minutes spent on one question. So we will begin by asking the general question, what is your definition of leadership? And we'll start with Sean Slowick.
Thank you, Tyler. My definition of leadership is someone who genuinely cares for the people they're leading. It's someone who knows about their concerns, knows about their interests, knows about what keeps them up at night. And as a senator there, I want to be that type of leader. I want to be there for the students of this campus. I want to address their concerns. I want them to come to me with their concerns. And I just generally want to be the best candidate I can be for this school. Thank you.
Thank you. My definition of leadership: an individual who essentially leads a group of people to bypass barriers towards the intended goals.
For me, I think leadership is being able to reach out to the people that you work with and empowering them to be the best that they can be. Generally, you are a person who would be overseer and providing opportunities for other individuals and just making sure that they know what steps they can take to make that happen for themselves. So I think it's pretty simple.
My definition of leadership is someone who works to unite people, who they're working with, and works hard for others and for yourself and for your cause that you're working for.
My definition of leadership is someone who leads by example, who doesn't lead from the back to the front, but side by side, and has a vision for the future that they can motivate others to achieve.
In the military, I was told that leadership, or you can't be a leader until you know how to follow. Basically, you have to be able to follow instructions. You have to be able to work with people. So I believe that that's leadership. And also, as a high-level soccer player, I know that it's important that if you're not the captain, you're still working as hard as you can. Because if you see somebody putting effort into something, you're going to put effort into it. So really just working together and also just trying to do your job.
So what is leadership to me? Leadership to me isn't necessarily telling people what to do and they follow you. It's about knowing what people want. And when you know what people want, you're able to help them reach their goals through themselves. I heard someone say empowerment, and that's an important part about being a leader. It's not always about whether or not it gets done. It's about showing people they have the skills that they would need for things to get done.
Thank you very much for all your responses. We will now begin by asking questions that we have prepared that are shuffled at random. So if you would like to respond to these questions, go ahead and raise your placard, and then if you would like to respond to rebuttal, please raise your placard as well. And then Vincent will bring the microphone to whoever raises their placard.
Cool, thank you, bye.
Right. So the first question is, what are your top priorities for where students' S&A fees, where they should go? S&A fees, and where they should go. Michael.
Possibly applying them towards reducing the cost of the child care center, possibly applying them towards some kind of a transit option. Maybe if it's, to help make up the difference in cost, if C-Tran doesn't want to have to pay the full cost to bring transit back to the physical campus, maybe we can make up, put down half of it, I don't know. But these are things that I think should be examined. Thank you.
Holly.
At this point, I can't say that I have an exact pulse on what the students want, but I think that that's an important piece, is going out as senators and talking to our student body and finding out what their needs are, not assuming what they are, because we all have our own agendas of what we think we need to move forward, but we need to find out from all the students that have an input here, what they feel they need to bring forward to us. So I think just working with the students is going to be a key point of that.
I think the transit idea is a great idea. We should put the money towards anything that puts academics first. Anything that makes school more accessible is what we need to put money towards. Last debate, I brought up the idea of an online tutoring forum. I think that would be a great resource to put it to. It is important to listen to the students, but it's also important to know what you want to do when you come in.
Thank you. Michael, would you like to respond to that, or would anybody else have anything they would like to add? Then we'll move on to the next question. So the next question is, what would you as an individual bring to the Senate? Franco.
I think personally what I would bring to the Senate is kind of an idea of a new voice. I'm kind of a minority when you think about it. I'm a true freshman. I graduated 8 months ago, no other college experience, and this is my college experience. Where we come from a campus where the average age of admission is 26 years old, where we have to have this voice still, where there are still new students coming in, especially when we're talking about influx of revenue, where people coming in who spend 4 years here spend quite a bit of money here.
Joshua.
I think he brings up a great point about multiple voices, even in the Senate and our student government. We have a diverse population at WCU, including more freshmen now, veterans, including all ages, So I think a new voice I would bring is that veteran voice, that drive, and as far as a vision to create something better for Vancouver at WCU and create a more inclusive school, but also a more a better vision for what we want to do for the future. A bigger school, more resources for facilities and for students, and I think I will be a driving force in that.
When it comes to thinking about what I would bring to leadership, I have a lot of experience in my past, but even for my first year here, I've worked really hard in getting involved in clubs and listening to students, and even during our first tabling, or both of our tablings, I've learned a lot about what people really care about and what they really want, and a lot of it is very similar. And so I am really dedicated and really involved right now, and I think I can bring a lot of people's voices to the table.
I bring somebody who what I bring to the picture is I've been somebody who has struggled to cover the cost of attendance. I bring an example of somebody who has struggled to figure out how to balance paying for school and paying for my housing. I lived in Seattle right around the times the rents started skyrocketing and actually ultimately priced me out. So I like to think I understand that side of things. I'm somebody who has had to help people with personal problems, and I'm talking as far as people who've been suicidal. I've even had to take people to the hospital. I bring basically someone who actually sits down and listens to what your concerns are. and essentially tries to find a solution that's best for the person. Thank you.
Well, in terms of what I'm bringing the students tonight, I like to think that I'm bringing an open ear. I'm always open to hear student concerns, student ideas of how to make our campus a better place. I've been heavily involved in IDP and ADP. If any of you have spoken at events there, you've probably seen me around, and I've heard a lot of interesting things you've all said. And I'd like to bring a student government that's more open and more receptive to the needs and problems of the students.
Thank you all for those answers. The next question will be, if elected, what will your main goal for the year be? Ian was.
My main goal, and I think a lot of people's main goals, is student communication, outreach, and getting them involved. And I think that's a common thread throughout maybe every administration that works in student government. It's super important, but even noticing that only a few people signed up to run in this campaign is a sign enough to really push for getting people involved. Because people, like we talked about at the last debate, people don't know what's available to them. They are not interested. We're a commuter school, but we need to start getting people interested, or getting that knowledge out there to them.
There's a couple of things that I think that are really important for me. One of them, I think, is sustainability on campus. We have a large footprint in creating trash, and I think that we have a lot of opportunities to reduce our waste. The other piece of that I think is really important is, again, what Ian was saying, fostering that connection, that involvement, and that sense of community on campus. So those are like equal for me.
My main goals, much like what Ian was talking about, I want to start holding monthly forums between the student body and the Senate, or even a commission of members of the Senate, whichever. The idea being we can then better address needs and issues of the general student body. And plus, I mean, for crying out loud, if we want to do possible reductions in what we pay for, we want to make sure we get that information out to the student body to make sure it's actually okay by them. Another one would be getting transit back. This actually impacts mobilely limited individuals. They have to walk at least 10 minutes out there. And there's bad lighting, they can slip. There's a lot of negatives to it where it currently is. And another one, because I've heard this one repeatedly, we need to examine how to reduce the cost of the child care center. This has been brought to me multiple times.
And thank you, Michael, for that.
Sweet, that's the end of what I had to say.
Well, during my first year in Senate, I'd like to establish connections with the students on campus and really learn what your concerns are. Specifically, I'd like to look at the idea of on-campus housing and push student government and the faculty towards that. Coming from someone who's come from out of state, I know that's a big issue, and if we really want to make our campus attractive to people coming from other regions of the country or even outside of the country, then that's really something we should push towards. In my first week here, I actually lived in my car because I came here from Chicago, and I had only managed to find a place to live last minute, and I'm still resolving things with my landlord. And I think that if we had on-campus housing, that would solve a lot of issues that students coming from outside face.
Well, it's loud. So, yeah, I'm a latecomer here, and as you can see, I didn't even get a plaque like the others did, but I guess that lets me stand out in a different way. So, pretty much, yeah, building connections would be my goal, and also learning and improving myself and others as going along the way, making connections. So, I already know probably about half of you here, so. And I'm betting half of you guys are probably going to vote for me anyway, so. Yeah, also humor, yeah, that's another goal. But, yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say. So.
So my most important thing that I want to make for the student body government is we need more resources. Our whole motto here is we're a small school with big school resources, but let's have more. Let's have affordable childcare. Let's have access to transits. Let's make it so we can have a good college experience here, dorms, and with all this stuff, the influx of students will increase, so we'll become a bigger school, and when we become a bigger school, we're able to fund these resources as well.
I'd like to focus on getting a good college experience. Last time you gave me crap about making sure that we did not focus just on getting jobs. I can say that my first time in college, I had a great experience. I did a study abroad, majored in history, it was great, but at the end of the day, I was left wanting when I was looking for a job. I think that we can couple our school with companies in the area. I know that when I was working at Nike, they reserved their internships for people at Western Washington, and Portland State. So I think that if we develop those connections in the community, we can make sure that people have a great college experience, but also are able to find a job. I also have an idea that we can run by the chancellor, where we try to come up with more functional degrees. If you look at a history degree, you can't get anything, but if you get an analysis and design degree, where you go in and you look at big situations in countries or something, and apply math to it, maybe not intense math, because most people who do history aren't necessarily math people.
Thank you, Hunter, but that is time.
Just to reiterate, basically what everyone else has said, but simply growth. As far as our education, as far as offering more classes, more resources for tutoring, and resources that will help our students pursue a better education, recreation, more things, more clubs, more funding for clubs, and importantly, I think most importantly, more facilities for the students to complete their degree. Another thing I very want to push is a coffee shop on campus, but that would be a small time goal. My future goals are to push, on campus housing and make it a bigger school. Keep these small classes because this is what makes us unique. But we need to, if we're gonna go into the future, we need to grow WCV.
Actually responding to Sean, the on-campus housing solution. I absolutely agree. It's a critical thing. It's actually part of my general platform, and I recognize the fact that by the end of next year we're not going to have it all shovel ready. That's cool though. But I definitely think it is important to actually start looking at this because we don't want 5 years to roll around and then suddenly we have, so let's say 3 times the amount of students on campus. Let's just for argument's sake. But then we have no place to house them. We should probably in the next year begin at least having a discussion about where could we put it, how would we finance it, talk to the Board of Trustees, all that.
Thank you all for your responses to the question. Now, the next question will be, what are your thoughts about how Senate meetings run, and what changes would you make if there are any? Start with Christopher.
So I do not have very much of an opinion on it, but it seems like it's from the few that I've attended, they seem pretty good. So since just pretty much starting off the opinion thread for people, so I think they're okay.
I'm kind of in that same boat too. It's hard to, as someone who's coming in to student government for the first time, to judge a system that's been established. But as far as when I do go in, I won't be afraid to suggest ideas or to think outside the box to make it a better system. Yeah.
I would try to reduce the formality of the session so that we can actually get stuff done, as opposed to sitting there and going through everything. I would have a list of things that we want to get done for the day and actually get them done.
Does anybody else have anything would like to add to that question? And we will move on. What is your interpretation of the mission of ASWSUV, and how does your platform plan to advance that mission?
I'm pretty sure the mission of all student government is to be the voice of the student. My whole platform is, it's supposed to be super flexible. I'm coming in with very little things that I need to get done. What I need to get done is what the people at the time say they need done. I'm open. If you guys see me in the hallway, stop, ask me any questions you have. I want to be there to be the best resource for people. That's what the job is and the mission of ASW, I'm going to butcher it again. But yeah.
For me, the idea of ASWSUV is to act as an advocate and a liaison for the staff and the students, to work to create a campus that we can all be proud of and that will help us to move forward into life outside of campus, because this is a finite amount of time for us. I think that part of our mission is just to help those students do that.
So if there are no other responses, we do have one more question to ask. So one of the biggest topics we discussed during this debate and the previous debate is increasing student participation and increasing communication and transparency with students. So how do you specifically intend to increase student participation and increase communication with the student body? We'll start with you.
It sounds kind of archaic, but the most effective way is to literally go out and talk to people, honestly. I mean, you can use social media, everyone does. Everyone, get more people involved on Cooksync, that's a great idea. But boots on the ground, talking to people is where you're gonna get participation, because you're gonna make a connection with them, you're gonna tell them what's going on, and you're probably gonna entice them to come and join in. I mean, it sounds simple, it's not, because you have to go out and make that effort yourself. But I love doing that, it's fun, and a lot of people up here I know do that. So that's the best way to increase student involvement, is literally talking to people face to face.
We'll just go Josh Hunter this way.
The best way to increase some participation is make somebody maybe feel more part of the WCU community. I think would be more programs for clubs and stuff like that, but more student involvement on campus and more space for students to collaborate on campus. That's why I also push for a area where there's a legitimate coffee shop. I think anyone that's been to Clark, that was their one positive point that they had for Clark, was they had a coffee shop and many common areas where students could talk, and that's where I think a lot of the participation would come from, is students getting to know each other. The cafe just isn't adequate enough, and I think that with more programs, more involvement, and more space where we can actually come together, I think we would see an increase. And going in the future, dorms, that would increase participation immensely.
I believe most people are focused on school when they're here, so they're not really trying to be involved. I think one way to increase it is to try to read Cooksync so that it's easy to access, or to transition to another platform online. Mostly, from my experience, you don't use it unless you're running for a position or trying to get into a group or something. So I'd like to, obviously we have Facebook groups and stuff like that, but maybe even just a weekly newsletter letting people know what's going on and where they can get involved, as opposed to Cooksync.
Kind of building off what Hunter just said, the majority of things that I figure out when there's stuff on campus, it's on the billboards outside, like the little billboards or little chalkboards out there. That's why I think a lot of people are actually here for this thing. They saw the thing out there, and that's why they're here. They're here to learn about it. Well, I don't know when every Senate meeting is. I have yet to attend a Senate meeting because I have no idea when they are. It's almost impossible for people to figure out this stuff quickly. It's about the accessibility of it. And making things easier to access would make student involvement increase dramatically.
Yeah, so I'd agree with a lot of everything that's been said, as well as perhaps adding some tables or more access, more being around the college more often, having more tables perhaps, or more workshops that people can just get to know the student government. And also, one thing I found really interesting is when reading the Constitution, I noticed that really all students are members of the Associate Students of WSUV. So when you don't really think about that until you actually run or do something that's very close to the student government. So having something that shows that we are all members of student government in one way or another would actually, in my opinion, greatly increase participation in student government. Because if you know that you're already in there, you might as well participate. So.
I would definitely go with that, advertising it all better. I'll be honest, I didn't actually know that the filing period for Senate was available until 3 days before the first deadline, and then there was the second deadline because not enough people applied. I think, frankly, I agree with that newsletter. Through the public forum idea, because the Senate is, for starters, it's out there. They're out there and they're actually hearing directly from the people. Again, in addition to the Senate meeting thing, I didn't know they were every Monday at 11. Fun fact. And so I think, if students can't meet at 11 o'clock time on Mondays because they have classes, let's do that public forum, because we could theoretically have those in the evenings, afternoons. We could maybe even have a vote that says, okay, this time, we obviously have to get feedback.
I'm sorry, Michael, but that is time.
It works for me. You get it.
Yeah, these are all really great ideas that I was going to say, but I'm going last. But I definitely think Michael's idea of a public forum is a great idea that could really get students active and engaged and allow them to voice their opinions. Maybe not like town halls happening across our country right now, but more civil and allowing students to share their ideas and their concerns with the student government. And because nobody really knows when the student senate is meeting or where, and many people just choose not to go. So I think a forum would be a great idea.
Well, thank you all so much for answering those questions. We'll now be moving on to the audience question portion of the debate. We'll be asking candidates questions given to us by the audience, and we'll be shuffling the questions to we'll try to get to as many as we can the remainder of the time. We will allow you guys to answer in the order, or whoever raises their placard first will answer first. And if you would like to answer, go ahead and raise your placard. We'll spend no more than 5 minutes on a question. So the first question is, what do you want to be known for as a senator?
I just want to be known as approachable. I want to be known as the person that you can come up to and just talk to, whether it's about the sociology exam or about what's going on in student government. It's just important that we all are students here, and it's important to be like a family almost.
We'll just go ahead. Start with Chris.
Okay. So I'd probably be known for connections, as I mentioned earlier. So perhaps, yeah. I actually forgot the rest of what I was going to say, but I guess, yeah, connections and humor.
I would like to be known for making a difference. Basically, at the end of the day, I made a difference. I came out and I listened to the students. I had the drive to go out and do what was sought.
I would like to be known as someone who worked hard for the people he was serving. That's basically the main goal of student government. So.
I think for me, I'd like to be known as a person who make that difference on campus, who work to create student leaders and work to reduce some of our waste and create a more sustainable campus. We talk a lot about doing that, but we're doing the hard work to get it done. So.
The champion of underprivileged individuals. This means Let's talk about that housing thing. Let's talk about that child care thing. Everything I've talked about today. Champion of the underprivileged individual.
That sounds nice, but I guess you get that title because you made it first. I just like to be known as someone who's open to new ideas and new suggestions, and someone who just advocates for the welfare of all our students.
Awesome, thank you guys. Thank you. So the next question is, give an example of a time in which you have followed through regarding an academic or job activity or project.
So this will refer back to my time when I lived in Western Pennsylvania. So I worked with children with special needs, and there was a boy with Down syndrome, and he was 22 years old, and his only goal was to be able to read. And through hours and hours and hours, I was able to teach this young man how to read. And that's probably the most impactful thing I've had on my entire life.
A little bit about my backstory, I guess this question would go along with, but as far as I'm this, one of the kids, but also I joined the military. I listened to commercials, they'll help pay for school, so I joined the Army Reserves, and I took a break from college to go to basic training in AIT, and then I came back, and then I got deployed, and then I came back, so I think my drive is definitely there to basically continue and follow through with what I start, and I'll take that into my leadership.
I'm also a non-traditional student to some of our audience members here, and it's been a struggle to balance being a mom and coming back late and getting our feet wet, so to speak, with all the classes that we have to reintegrate with and remember how to do algebra, trig, and all the fun stuff. But for me, it's really been pushing myself to complete that, to work to finish. I set a goal of finishing my bachelor's by 2018 with 2 minors, and while that means 5 to 6 classes a term, I'm still involved in student government and opportunities on campus. So just being there when you say you're going to be there, putting forth the effort, I've managed to do that. I managed to pull a 3.98 out of Clark doing 5 to 6 classes a term, and I've come here to do the same. So I'm going to stick with my academics as my example.
Does anybody else have anything to add in response to that question? The next question is, how do you interpret the role of the senator as described by the Constitution? Let's start with Ian.
Simply put, it's being a liaison to the student body, and so how I interpret that is, like I've stated a million times today, talking to people, just going out there, making sure you're available to them, listening to them, being that voice, bringing that into Senate meetings or the public forum, which is an amazing idea, which I think really, exemplifies what it means to be a senator and what your role is as a liaison to the students.
Actually, everything Ian said, plus allocating resources such as student fees, where those are going to go. And my understanding is they also they approve appointees.
I think that it's also using the guidelines that we've been given and our bylaws to act as a guideline for how we move forward with the administration of our duties. So knowing really finitely how we advocate for students, how we liaise with the administration, the committees that we need to be part of in order to facilitate that is all part of the Constitution as well.
If you would like to have a rebuttal, yes.
People keep bringing up the public forum idea, and I think that's a good idea, but I think that the fact that we have a low participation in the student government means that most students are happy, so we should work on serving the underserved students who have problems and bring them up to us. We need to make it available, but we also need to make sure that we're not focusing on a problem that doesn't exist.
So, kind of branching off what you were saying too, is the fact of the matter is that we see these people who, just because someone doesn't go out and say they have a problem, doesn't mean they don't have a problem. There are a lot of people here who have problems that just don't say that they have these problems. When you compare the problems to other people, you lose track of what's a problem with somebody. Or how Holly was saying, how she has 5 classes. To some people, that's their only concern, is just the 5 classes. It makes things look diluted, but everything is between your ear to your ear. It's all in your head, your own problems.
Still my point.
Well, if nobody has anything else to respond to that, we will move on to the next question. How do you plan to use your chosen field of study to help improve student government? How do you plan to use your chosen field of study to help you improve student government?
Well, I'm a social sciences major, so it fits in quite nicely. I feel a strong ability to connect with students and to foster a sense of ability to reach out and to actively hear what students are saying, not just to interpret what I think that they're saying. I think that's really important. I'm also working in women's studies and as a Spanish minor, so ability to reach out in the community and understand a broader spectrum of issues that may not affect me personally, but that I can use the privilege that I have to help others. So.
My degree major is public affairs, so quite literally, I'm basically going to school for a job in government or basically to help the public. As far as how I would use that, and some of the classes I'm taking right now is, Initiative for Public Deliberation is a class I'm taking right now. It's a whole class on how to basically talk to people and bring them together to find common interests for a common goal. And I think that's what we all are trying to do here at WSU is we're coming together for a common goal of education. We also want that WSU community. So I think that's what we all want.
As a mechanical engineering student, I plan on bringing reality to a lot of the situations that people have. A lot of campaigns are based off of promises, but I'd like to make those promises feasible. If you look at Bernie Sanders' campaign, obviously he had a lot of promises to the people that he might not have been able to fulfill, like free college and everything like that for everybody. What I plan on doing is taking our financial ability and applying it to programs in a reasonable manner so that we accomplish goals and don't wind up overspending.
So, like I said, I'm a true freshman. I've changed my major in my head 10 times, but officially 3 times already. I chose psychology as my major, which I think I'm going to stick to. And how I plan to use this major is, to me, it's not about what you major in. It's about your experience and what you learn. Like, if you take a lot of information from a personal finance class, it doesn't mean that you're a finance major. You should learn from each of your classes and use all of your overall classes for your experiences leaving.
So I'm majoring in public administration with an emphasis on public affairs, on an emphasis on public administration. So actually, it's actually giving me a real world perspective of the fact that you cannot make all these big, bold promises and expect that's all going to actually happen overnight. It's incremental change. That's the whole thing about the policy process, is that you're not going to get everything done overnight. Heck, everything I talk about that I want to do, it may not happen next year. It may happen in 2 years, 3 years. But the idea is that we want to lay the groundwork and make sure that we do all these things right. That's what public administration has taught me. That's what I'm going to bring to the Senate. Thank you.
So the next question is, if you do not win your election, do you intend on still being involved in ASWSUV affairs? And if so, how do you intend on being involved?
Definitely, I will continue to be involved. I'm slightly involved now. I'm in a number of clubs and I'm on activity boards, and I continue to do that, and I will always continue to do that. I mean, it's something that I love to do. I love working with student government, so even if I lose, of course, I would continue my work.
I feel the same way. I'm a leader in a lot of clubs on campus, and I feel still, without the Senate title, very comfortable speaking with students and bringing those concerns as a liaison still between the Senate and the student body. So, absolutely.
Yeah, if I don't win, I'll probably continue working in IPD and APD and working to help on campus in that way. And if I don't win, you'll probably see me here next year.
So currently, I feel like I'm kind of a part of just the experience. I'm that guy at the cafe that everyone goes to in line and complains about what's going on in their day. So the important part about that is making sure that when those people come to complain to me, I can set them up with those resources still. Irregardless of whether or not I'm a senator, is if people come in with me with a concern, the best way for me to do is be able to out these things.
I have very specific things I want to do when I'm in. I've already emailed the chancellor, and there were no results from that email to get video classes or notes from the classes. My work schedule made me stay up from Sunday at 5:30 p.m. until Tuesday because of my class schedule. So I was up for easily 48 hours. So I plan on continuing to try to get that pushed through. I think that's one of the big things we need, and also night classes, and possibly working the summer semesters in so that people with work schedules can take 3 classes per semester and still graduate in 4 years.
All right. I know a lot of these questions have been challenging and the answers have been difficult. So let's end this on a little bit more of a lighthearted note. So what would you say is the greatest strength of Washington State University, Vancouver?
I think the greatest strength is that it is a small community, so you have that opportunity to reach out to a ton of people and get everyone involved, connected. We're not like, Pullman. We don't have that mass amount. We have a finite group of people, and they're easy to connect with.
I think we have an amazing school, but I think the most exciting thing is the potential that we have as a school. We have an amazing campus, a large campus, we have an amazing student population, and with pushing for, growth and, the things that we want, that we can achieve if we want them, I think we have, the sky's the limit for it. I think in 20 years when I look back, I'll be proud that I went to WSUV.
Again, the size of the school, I think, is the biggest thing because we have the greatest possibility to enact change right now. Whereas once we grow, we won't be able to do that. If you look at big campuses, they can't do things very quickly. And right now, we can do something.
I think the greatest example of this school is just the diversity that we have in our student government, and our student, not just student government, just the student body, where we have moms and husbands and wives. We have students. I still live at home with my parents. I'm 18 years old. It's just this huge diverse body that we have. The diversity here is the greatest strength.
All the people who didn't get into UW. But seriously, I think the small size of our campus is one of our biggest strengths. I love the 20 to 30 students per professor classrooms. Really just lets you know your professor and establish a relationship with them. And then just, of course, the people who you meet and interact on campus are great.
It's small, it's easy to navigate, and plus, I went to like a lot of community colleges, don't ask why. But it feels a lot like a community college, except it's a 4-year institution. And actually, part of the reason I came to WSU was a status thing. All my friends went to Western, only went to UW, and I was like, I'm going to go to WSU, show you guys.
When I first came to campus, I looked around and I noticed that I'm not going to stand out. and in some ways that may seem like a funny statement, but I felt like that Adam Sandler movie, the adult at a kindergarten desk, and I was concerned about the perception, but I feel very comfortable. And looking around, I saw that it's a very diverse campus, and I love that, and I love the feeling that we do act inclusively, and we work to empower students and to create leaders, and I just think that that's a really welcoming community that we're working with.
Thank you all for your answers. Let's give a big round of applause to our Senate candidates. And thank you all for attending the second debate. And we will have a short 15-minute break, and we'll move on to executive tickets.